most people assume emotional strength comes from coldness or shutting the world out. But with Sigma males, the truth is far more complex. Their emotional untouchability isn't born from apathy, it's the result of discipline, self-awareness, and psychological clarity developed over years of observing human behavior. While others react, attach, and absorb pressure, a Sigma processes everything from a distance that protects his core. And people feel that difference the moment they interact with him. What makes him so hard to shake isn't that he lacks emotion, it's that he refuses to let the world dictate his inner state. Drama, manipulation, guilt, pressure, emotional chaos. None of it lands the way it lands on others. His calm becomes disarming. His silence becomes confusing. His independence becomes intimidating. And before people realize it, they're dealing with someone who cannot be pushed, pulled, or emotionally controlled the way most men can. If you're ready to understand the deeper psychology behind what truly makes a Sigma male emotionally untouchable, stay with me. And before we dive in, subscribe to Silent Wise so you never miss the insights that help you decode the rarest personality on the spectrum. Let's break down the 9 traits that set him apart, and why no one can shake his emotional foundation. He controls his emotions instead of letting emotions control him. Control isn't suppression for him, it's mastery. While most people react in real time, letting their emotions dictate tone, decisions, and direction, he operates from a deeper, slower place. His emotional world doesn't sit on the surface. It runs in structured currents beneath a calm exterior. When tension rises, when someone provokes him, when pressure builds, he doesn't erupt or collapse. He retreats inward, evaluates the landscape, and chooses a response that benefits him rather than betrays him. This ability to pause before reacting creates an atmosphere around him that feels powerful, even unsettling. Others expect emotional cues to guide them: frustration, excitement, irritation. But he gives nothing away. That silence, that control, becomes its own kind of authority. His emotional discipline was not inherited, it was built. Years of watching people hurt themselves through impulsive reactions taught him the value of restraint. He knows that anger spoken too soon becomes regret, that vulnerability given to the wrong person becomes ammunition, that excitement shown too openly becomes expectation. So he keeps his internal world in his own hands. Not hidden out of fear, but protected out of intelligence. When someone tries to provoke him, he sees the intention instantly. When someone tries to guilt him, he recognizes the emotional leverage behind it. And when someone tries to control him through chaos, he steps back so far that they lose access to the buttons they once thought they could push. What makes him emotionally untouchable is not distance, but discipline. He feels everything, he simply refuses to let those feelings dictate his direction. His calm is not emptiness, it's strategy. His silence is not avoidance, it's clarity. People often mistake his emotional control for coldness, not realizing it's a form of strength that keeps him centered in storms that drown others. He knows that the one who masters himself becomes immune to the world's attempts to pull him off balance. And once you understand that about him, you realize why nothing, not pressure, not drama, not manipulation, ever truly shakes him. He doesn't rely on validation, approval, or reassurance from anyone. Independence for him isn't a pose, it's a foundation. Where others look outward to feel seen, appreciated, or affirmed, he turns inward. His self-worth isn't negotiated through compliments or social acceptance. It's built from a private dialogue with himself, formed through experience, reflection, and relentless honesty. He doesn't chase praise because praise doesn't build him. He doesn't collapse under criticism because criticism doesn't define him. This emotional autonomy creates an aura people instantly feel. A man who isn't waiting for permission, applause, or reassurance simply moves differently, and that difference threatens those who depend on external validation to feel stable. His rejection of approval-seeking behavior was forged early. He learned that people's opinions shift with convenience, emotion, and personal bias. What they validate today, they may attack tomorrow. What they admire in him when it benefits them becomes a problem when it challenges them. So he stopped giving anyone that kind of power. When he makes a decision, he doesn't ask, "Will they like this?" He asks, "Is this aligned with who I am?" That subtle shift transforms him into someone who walks his path without checking who's watching, clapping, or judging. And that unshakable center radiates a quiet strength that cannot be bought or borrowed. This absence of need makes him emotionally untouchable because no one can manipulate what they can't influence. Flattery doesn't sway him. Silent treatment doesn't corner him. Approval withheld doesn't weaken him. People can't pull him with praise or push him with disapproval. His internal compass is so intact that external voices become background noise. This is why relationships with him feel different. He doesn't enter them to fill a void. He doesn't cling to attention or fear losing it. He chooses connections because he wants them, not because he needs them. And when a man moves through the world with that level of independence, he becomes immune to the emotional games that trap everyone else. He stays calm under pressure, making manipulation nearly impossible. Pressure reveals most people, but it reveals nothing about him. While others tense up, rush decisions, or scramble for emotional footing, he becomes even more composed. His calm under pressure isn't passive. It's deliberate, sharpened by years of studying human behavior and understanding his own emotional triggers. When the environment becomes chaotic, his mind slows down instead of speeding up. He refuses to let urgency dictate his choices or fear shape his reactions. The steady presence creates an imbalance in any situation where someone tries to manipulate him, because manipulation depends on emotional disruption, and he doesn't give them any. His calm is a shield that cannot penetrate. Manipulators thrive on predictable emotional cues: panic, frustration, desire for approval, fear of conflict. But he shows none of them. His face doesn't shift. His tone doesn't rise. His energy doesn't waver. He listens, observes, and stays rooted in logic even when someone tries to weaponize emotion against him. A guilt trip falls flat when the target doesn't absorb guilt. Pressure loses its power when the opponent doesn't rush. Provocation fails when the other person doesn't react. He creates a psychological silence that forces manipulators to hear their own tactics echo back at them. And in that quiet, they lose control. What makes him emotionally untouchable is that he cannot be pushed into decisions he hasn't examined. He cannot be cornered into choices he hasn't approved internally. Pressure doesn't sway him. It exposes the intentions of the person applying it. While others break under emotional manipulation, he studies it, maps it, and neutralizes it. And once he sees someone is trying to influence him through pressure rather than truth, he withdraws completely. For him, calm is not just a reaction. It is a weapon, one that makes any attempt to control him collapse before it even begins. He creates deep emotional boundaries that protect his inner world. His emotional world is a fortress, not because he's closed off, but because he's intentional about who gains access. While others scatter pieces of themselves everywhere, seeking connection, validation, or comfort, he guards his inner landscape with precision. His boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They allow in what aligns, and they keep out what drains, manipulates, or destabilizes him. He doesn't broadcast his vulnerabilities or give his trust casually. He chooses carefully, slowly, and consciously, and this selective openness makes his emotional center incredibly difficult to penetrate or influence. People feel the distance, but what they're sensing is discipline, the decision to protect his peace above all else. These boundaries were not built overnight. They were shaped by experiences where giving too much too soon cost him energy, clarity, or emotional safety. He learned that not everyone deserves access, not everyone can hold space without distorting it, and not everyone values what they're given. So he began to refine the gate. He notices who respects his pace, who honors his silence, who approaches him with sincerity, and who tries to force their way in. And he never ignores these signals. His boundaries define the quality of his relationships because they filter out chaos before it enters his life. Emotional access to him must be earned, not assumed. What makes him emotionally untouchable is that these boundaries are consistent. They don't crumble under pressure, affection, or expectations. People can't pull him closer with flattery, push him away with manipulation, or guilt him into emotional exposure. He shares only what he chooses, when he chooses, with whom he chooses, with whom he chooses. And those who try to bypass his boundaries quickly learn they're dealing with someone who cannot be rushed, cornered, or coerced into emotional vulnerability. His inner world remains intact because he built it with intention, and because he protects it with unwavering strength. He detaches from chaos instantly, never getting pulled into drama. Chaos is where most people lose themselves, but it's where he becomes clearest. The moment tension rises, emotions flare, or drama begins to swirl, he doesn't lean in, he steps out. Not physically every time, but mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. His detachment is immediate, precise, and unwavering. He knows that chaos thrives on reaction, and he refuses to feed it. while others get hooked into arguments, pulled into emotional spirals, or baited into conflict. He disconnects from the noise with surgical calm. His ability to detach so quickly makes him nearly impossible to provoke or destabilize because he doesn't grant chaos the fuel it needs to grow. His instinct to detach was shaped by watching how destructive emotional turbulence can be. He's seen people say things they can't take back, make decisions they later regret, or let manipulation control their behavior, all because they were swept into someone else's storm. He decided long ago that he would never surrender his emotional clarity to someone else's instability. So when drama appears, he doesn't argue, justify, or engage. He observes, identifies the source, and mentally steps back. His silence becomes a barrier chaos cannot cross. His calm becomes a mirror reflecting the other person's behavior back at them. And without his participation, the drama weakens. This rapid detachment is what makes him emotionally untouchable. Chaos cannot influence someone who never enters its arena. Manipulators can't hook someone who refuses the bait. Dramatic people can't destabilize someone who steps away before the impact hits. He protects his center by choosing peace over reaction, clarity over conflict, and distance over emotional entanglement. And this ability to withdraw instantly isn't avoidance, it's mastery. It's what allows him to move through life unaffected by storms that consume others. He thinks before reacting, giving nothing for others to exploit. His mind moves in silence before his words ever appear. And that pause, that controlled moment between stimulus and response, is what makes him nearly impossible to manipulate. While most people react instantly, exposing their emotions, desires, insecurities, or triggers, he holds still long enough to see the full picture. He studies tone, intention, timing, and the emotional weight behind what's being said. He registers the energy, not just the words. And in that space, he decides whether the moment deserves a response, a redirection, or complete disengagement. This deliberate restraint means no one can predict him, push him, or corner him. He never reveals more than he intends, and his reaction is always chosen, never pulled out of him. People accustomed to emotional volatility find this unsettling. They expect impulsive reactions they can analyze or exploit. They look for cracks in his expression, impatience in his tone, a shift in posture that gives them emotional leverage, but he gives them nothing. His stillness is not passive, it's strategic. He knows that a single, unfiltered reaction can reveal too much, your fears, your motives, your weaknesses. So he guards his responses with an almost meditative discipline. Even in conflict, his composure doesn't break. Even in provocation, his expression doesn't crack. His restraint becomes a psychological shield that reflects more than it absorbs. What makes him emotionally untouchable is that thinking before reacting prevents others from steering his behavior. Guilt trips fall flat because he doesn't respond immediately. Manipulation fails because he refuses emotional bait. Arguments lose power because he doesn't escalate. He chooses clarity over impulse, intention over instinct, and strategy over emotion. His reactions, rare, measured, precise, carry weight because they are never careless. And those who try to provoke him eventually learn the truth. You cannot control a man who refuses to hand you access to his emotional triggers. His calm isn't silence, it's sovereignty. He walks away from disrespect the moment it appears. No negotiation. Disrespect is the one currency he refuses to trade in. The moment it appears, in tone, in attitude, in subtle dismissiveness, he doesn't argue, defend himself, or try to correct the other person. He simply withdraws. To him, disrespect isn't something to fix, it's something to leave behind. He knows that negotiating with it only teaches people they can cross the line twice, so he treats the first sign of disrespect as the final sign he needs. His silence in that moment is not weakness but judgment, a quiet conclusion that the connection has already ended. People often don't realize they lost access to him until he's already gone, leaving them wondering what changed when the truth is simple. He saw the disrespect, and he refused to stay. His ability to walk away so quickly comes from an internal rule he never breaks. His self-respect is non-negotiable. He has no interest in convincing someone to value him, no intention of fighting for space where he wasn't welcomed, and no desire to stay where his presence is taken for granted. This makes him impossible to manipulate through emotional outbursts, guilt, or apologies delivered too late. He doesn't need closure, explanations, or promises to behave better next time. He believes that disrespect is not a mistake. It's information, a revelation, and once he sees it, he updates his path immediately. His detachment is clean, quiet, and irreversible. What makes him emotionally untouchable is that he doesn't stay long enough for disrespect to damage him. He doesn't absorb it, internalize it, or try to justify it. He leaves it where it belongs, with the person who delivered it. And because he walks away without drama, without warnings, and without emotional residue, people often realize too late that they misjudged his silence for tolerance. He isn't tolerant, he's observant. And once he sees a lack of respect, he chooses peace over proximity every time. His exit is not punishment, it's preservation. The act of a man who knows his worth and refuses to negotiate it with anyone. He processes pain privately, transforming it instead of projecting it. Pain doesn't turn him outward, it turns him inward. While most people release their hurt through arguments, impulsive reactions, or emotional outbursts, he disappears into silence. Not to avoid the pain, but to understand it. He believes that wounds mishandled become weapons, and he refuses to let his hurt spill into the world or onto the people around him. So he sits with it, dissects it, absorbs it, and turns it into strength. His solitude becomes a forge, and the pain becomes raw material for evolution. He doesn't seek sympathy, validation, or emotional rescue. He seeks meaning, clarity, and transformation. This private alchemy is what makes him appear unshakable, because you never see him break, only rebuild. His choice to process pain alone isn't coldness, it's discipline. He knows that projecting hurt onto others creates cycles he has no interest in repeating. He refuses to manipulate through sadness, to guilt through suffering, or to demand emotional caretaking. Instead, he carries his pain to a quiet internal workshop where he disassembles it piece by piece. He looks for patterns, lessons, and truths hidden inside the ache. Where others see heartbreak, betrayal, or disappointment, he sees information, clues about what needs to change, what must be let go, or what part of himself needs strengthening. That's why his pain never becomes bitterness. He refuses to let it define him. He uses it to refine him. What makes him emotionally untouchable is not that he avoids pain, but that he transforms it before anyone else can weaponize it. People can't use his vulnerability against him because they never get to see it in its raw form. They see only the version that has already been processed, integrated, and turned into clarity. By the time he returns from his silence, the pain that could have destabilized him has already become wisdom, and this ability to convert suffering into strength without external chaos, without emotional spillover, without seeking reassurance, that is what makes him impossible to break. He chooses solitude over emotional noise. Keeping his mind clear and untouchable, solitude for him isn't withdrawal, it's alignment. While most people fill their lives with constant noise, opinions, and emotional clutter, he steps away to protect the one thing he values most: clarity. His inner world is where he thinks, heals, plans, and recalibrates without distortion. Solitude is not loneliness, it's his sanctuary. It frees him from the emotional contagion of others, their fears, their insecurities, their projections. In quiet, he regains control of his mental space. In stillness, he recenters his emotional compass. And by choosing solitude deliberately, he keeps his mind sharp and his emotional state untouchable, insulated from the chaos that drains everyone else. His preference for solitude was shaped by experience, the realization that too much connection can dilute self-awareness. Emotional noise from others demands attention, drains energy, and blurs intuition. He learned that every room has its pressure, every conversation its undercurrents, and every relationship its emotional cost. So he retreats not to escape the world, but to stay above it. In solitude, he's able to observe rather than absorb, interpret rather than react, and reset rather than get pulled into unnecessary turbulence. This is why he rarely feels overwhelmed. He doesn't let emotional static enter his system long enough to destabilize him. What makes him emotionally untouchable is that solitude keeps him immune to influence. When you're comfortable being alone, no one can control you with their presence. When your peace comes from within, no one can threaten you by withdrawing theirs. When your clarity is self-generated, external chaos can cloud your vision. Solitude gives him sovereignty, the freedom to choose his reactions, his connections, and his emotional investments without pressure. And that is why people feel something different around him, a mind and spirit that cannot be crowded, rushed, or shaken. His isolation is not emptiness, it is power, cultivated, intentional, and absolutely unbreakable. When you understand these 9 traits, you begin to see why a Sigma male moves through the world untouched by the emotional turbulence that overwhelms others. His strength isn't loud, and it isn't performative. It's built in silence, discipline, and deep self-awareness. People try to provoke him, study him, influence him, but nothing truly gets inside. He operates from an inner space that no chaos, no manipulation, and no noise can reach. If this breakdown gave you a clearer look into what makes the Sigma mindset so rare, make sure you subscribe to Silent Wise for more high-level psychological insights, and drop Untouchable Mindset in the comments if you're ready for the next chapter.